Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Trinity stamps. Today we're going to be doing monochromatic cards two ways. These are really great cards for when you're trying to make a lot of cards quickly. So I am using the Sketchy Nativity scene and then also these, I think it's Elegant Sentiments. I'll link them below. And then I thought I was going to use the arches, but I didn't end up using them. They do make a full like 5x7 arch card, which I think is really, really nice. Just as another option, because I know most of us, it's just A2. So here I just have regular white cardstock, and you can see this is a generously sized image. So I'm going to stamp that down after I treat it with my anti-static tool, and I will be stamping in some white pigment ink. I am going to be doing just white heat embossing on white. Later on, we'll add our color to that. But for now, I'm just doing the white on white so we get that resist. You can do this part second, but you have to make sure your panel is completely dry. So I tend to want to do it first. So I am going to give that good pressure. And then I'm going to add that white detail embossing powder on top. Oh, here, I did stamp it twice. I do prefer to stamp my images twice. But when the paper moves, it's like kind of a gamble, like whether or not it will work out. In my case, it did end up working out, giving it that nice CPR method to get the pressure on there. And then this embossing powder is a white detail embossing powder, which just means it's a little bit finer. That is what I prefer for my sentiments. And so consequently, I, rather than buy two, embossing powders, I just use it for everything. And then I do preheat my heat gun to minimize warping. So while I'm doing my stamping and stuff, I'm preheating my heat gun, and then I will bring that to my paper and make sure that I get everything nice and even and melted. And then once that is done, then we're going to do the second way that you can do these types of monochromatic cards. They both have like their pros and cons, just like anything else. So here I have a blue piece of cardstock. I believe this is actually, I think it might be Peacock from Hero Arts, but don't quote me on it. I'll link it. But so starting with a colored cardstock does cut down on the amount of ink blending that we'll have to do. And then I just did the same thing. I stamped it twice. I used that same fine detail embossing powder and then heat set it. Now here I'm going to go back in, and this is I'm going to use that as a template. That's the word that I want. And so I'm going to lay my star down where I want it, because I'm going to have two different pieces. I'm going to have the die cut nativity scene, and then this is going to be my background piece. So in order to make sure that we can see that star shining, I use the first one as a template to see where my star needs to go. Then I can go ahead and remove that, swap it out for a clean piece of cardstock, and then, stamp my star, heat emboss it just like we were before. So at the end of this, we have two nativity scenes that are heat embossed, one on white, one on blue, and two stars that are the same way. Now, I am going to add ink blending to both of these, but one is going to require a little bit more work than the other. Now, for a really long time, when I was on a budget crafting, I had to basically make a choice about what I was going to spend my money on. And so what I chose to do was invest in my inks, and then I just bought white cardstock. I didn't buy colored cardstock. So that way I could go in with my inks and do as much ink blending as I wanted to get the colors that I wanted. And that was just where I chose to invest my money. Now, if you have, issues with dexterity or mobility, or, maybe you just prefer the colored cardstock, like a more opaque color, I totally get that. then that may be the route that you want to go, doing the colored cardstock. But if you're starting off with white, you want to go in with your lightest color. And I chose blue because blue is my boyfriend, but this would look really beautiful in purples or pinks, any of those things. And then here you can see I'm just using a little piece of tape on my fingers to just make sure that I'm not transferring the ink from place to place, because I'm picking it up on my fingers. So once I have my lightest color down and I have a good coat on everything, then I'm going to start to bring in my darker colors. Now, because I have the star kind of in that top leftish side, I'm not going to add as much darkness over there. I'm going to add the darkness mainly to the right hand side and the bottom, like that bottom corner. But I did add just a little bit of shadow because I want them to blend. If you wanted it to be more pronounced, more like a ray of light coming from the star, then you absolutely could just leave that whole star area like really, really light. But I still wanted to do like the stars in the background and things like that. So also for the colors, I go with a more traditional like royal blue, navy blue, but you can swap this out for like Mermaid Lagoon and Uncharted Mariner for a more teal color, which is also really pretty. So then with the chip sapphire, I am going to, again, go around the edges, but this time I'm not going to really bring it in right next to that star. I'm going to leave that more open to create an illusion of that kind of glow. It's not, it's not like super apparent. It's not like knock you over the head, the glow. We could do that, but that would be a different technique. This is more of just kind of like a halo effect around Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus. So we want, that area to be the lightest because it will draw our eye in when we're looking at the card. For my darkest color, this is going to be black soot. And again, that bottom right-hand side is going to be the darkest area. We do want to make sure that these colors are blending with each other, but I do want the light to appear to be coming from that star. So I'm still leaving that relatively light. And then I know it seems silly because we're going to die cut out that nativity scene, but really there's no good way to get it to match. So I find the easiest way to get it to match is to just ink blend the panels the same way. So then when I die cut them out, then I know that laying them down one on top of the other they'll line up for where the ink blending is. So once I go out to the black soot, then I'm going to come back in through my darker color. So then chip sapphire to the blueprint sketch. And each time I'm kind of going over all of the colors to kind of pull that in and help them blend. But you can see how we're getting that little bit of a lighter halo with the like more left to center. So that it looks like it's kind of shining down, and then the bottom right is a little bit darker. For the lightest color, I typically do kind of go all over, just to make sure everything is blended really well and I have a solid color, a solid blend going on. Now this is, again, remember we started with white cardstock. So this is going to give us a lighter version because its base is white. So in order to get a darker version, you would really, really have to do your ink blending multiple times to really build up that color. Now the blending buddies do help because they do put down a lot of color at one time. They are my favorite. So here I'm just taking a paper towel and buffing over the top, and then we're going to go in and we're going to do the colored version. Now with this one, we don't have to go all over because we already have that blue base. So I still put the lightest color on there because I feel like it gives me that like little bit of moisture to start the process of the blending, like where it's going to sit on top of the cardstock. So I still use my lightest color, even though realistically you can't really see it. I just view it as kind of like how I use my anti-static tool before I heat emboss. I view my lightest color as just kind of like prepping the paper for the darker colors that will come. So then from here, I am speeding this up because it's the same thing that we just watched. I'm doing the same thing, going in with that blueprint sketch, and then the chip sapphire and the black soot. Now, once again, I am leaving that kind of lighter halo coming from the star, doing the darker shading in the bottom right. But I'm sure you will notice, because we didn't start with a white base, this card is a little bit darker. However, the benefit is that it doesn't take quite as long, because it doesn't require you to build up as much color to be opaque, especially when it comes to the lightest color. I still, like I said, do them the same way. I blend out to the darkest color and then blend my way back in. But overall, this card with the colored card base will be darker. Now, a benefit to that you'll see kind of in the next step, where depending upon what look you want to go for, you may find that going with the colored cardstock is easier. So here, again, just going in with that paper towel, and then just kind of buffing over everything to pick up the extra ink. And then for our next step, here I'm just like double checking and triple checking that there's no ink there. So for this one, this is the one that is the white cardstock. So I'm going to do some splattering with just clean water, and you'll be able to see how that color bleaches out. It will still bleach out on the colored cardstock, but it will not be as light. Like I use this to create kind of like stars that are further back into the distance, because it does give you that little bit of white. That does not work on the colored cardstock. So here, I am going to be using some Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearls. This does give us quite a bit of shine, and this does show up better on the colored cardstock because it gives us more contrast since it is a little bit darker. Now you will still be able to see it on both of them, but you can see it better without like having to tilt it into the light on the one that is the colored cardstock. So again, it just depends on kind of what look you're going for. I prefer the ink blended one, but I do understand the appeal of the colored cardstock. So you want to make sure that these are dry before you do your die cutting. I'm gonna just hold that down with a piece of pixie tape, and then once these are die cut, you can see you can kind of mix them up. Like this is the white on the colored cardstock or the white on its own cardstock, and then the colored cardstock on the colored cardstock. And that is the way that I will be doing them. Like the white will go with the white and the colored cardstock will go with the colored cardstock, but not before we add some extra shading. Now, it's not that you can't color this image, but it's even in the title. It's like it's a sketchy scene. So that can be a little bit more challenging since it doesn't have as many details. This might be one that would be really pretty like watercolored. Here, I decided with that monochromatic look, I'm just going to go in. I am going to use my alcohol markers, and I'm going to go in with my blues. In this case, it's the B90s family. They're kind of more desaturated, and I am just going to add some shadows in the same colors. So typically when we're talking about adding shadows, it's, where any point where two things meet or where one object lays on top of the other. I am trying to kind of color them as if the light source was like more in the center, where the baby Jesus is, because I want that to be the highlight. I mean, he's obviously the highlight of Christmas. So I'm going in, and I am going in with my darkest color. If you are scared to start with your darkest color, it's totally normal and I get it. Then lay down your shadows with your lightest color first, and then you can work out to your darkest color as you get more comfortable, and then you would just do the same thing in the reverse. So you would work out to the darkest color and then work from your darkest color back to your lightest to make sure that everything is blended. And this is like if you chose to do another color, the same thing would work. If you chose to do a purple or a teal or, a hunter green or whatever color combination you chose to do. Sometimes I like to do that when I'm doing bulk cards, and I know a lot of us do our Christmas cards in bulk. I like to switch it up by just changing the colors because it helps it keep the making more interesting for myself. But you can do them all the same color, and just I have videos on making like batch cards, but basically I just do an assembly line style that I do all of the heat embossing, all of the die cutting, all of the coloring, like I do them all at one time, so that way when it's done I can just move on to the next step. So here you can see adding that little bit of shading really does make our focal point pop quite a bit. And I'm going to color the other one the same way. So here, if you get your alcohol marker on your embossing, it will color it. It will color the white. You can just clean it up with your colorless blender. So you just want to swipe over top of it. You don't want to rub, just swipe over top of it and then scribble off the color onto a scrap piece of paper, and it will clean that alcohol marker right up. For the sentiments, I am doing two different ones. One says, "Oh Holy Night," and the other one says, "Glory to the Newborn King." I really, really love this sentiment set. It is, like, it has so many good ones in there for, like, Christmas songs or hymns that you would normally hear. I'm a huge fan of it, plus the font's great. So here, I again treating with my anti-static tool just like we did with our previous embossing, and then I am using that white detail embossing powder, but this time I'm just doing it on navy cardstock because I know that's going to complement the cards that I am making, since we are using like a blue monochromatic. The blue that I chose was not quite dark enough. Like once I held it up next to it, it wasn't like quite as matchy. So in order to change that, I'm just going to go in with that chip sapphire and go right over the top, and then again use that paper towel to buff it off. So if you have a colored cardstock that you would rather use and it's like really close but not exactly the same color as what you would want, just add some ink blending over top and see if you can change it to the shade that you're looking for. So the one on the left is the colored cardstock. The one on the right is the one that started off as white. And then, the sentiments, because they're different shapes, I am putting them in different areas. So the Glory to the Newborn King is going to go down kind of to the bottom right. And then the Oh Holy Night is going to go up into the top right, because we already have something going on in the top left. We have to create that balance. So whether it's creating the balance diagonally, like we did on the one, the one that was white, or creating the balance, kind of across the top like we did with the Oh Holy Night. Like those are just things that you want to look at. I did end up popping these up on foam just because I felt like it made the card more dynamic, but you absolutely could just adhere them down flat. If you're making these or something similar as your regular like Christmas card, I actually would recommend doing them flat, because then you're going to have to pay more for postage, or you're going to have them hand canceled, and that is kind of a little bit of a pain in the tushy. The other thing you could do is pop them up on foam tape, but then just do a lower profile foam tape. Here I am going to do some rhinestones, and these are the Aussie Opal rhinestones. They're really, really pretty, kind of pale blue. And so I'm going to add those around the sentiments just to accent them. And it helps to guide the eye for the card, guide your recipient's eye around the card. So once those are on, I am going to add a little bit of shimmer to the areas that are lighter or that the light would hit. just to, again, add a little something. And then these are both cards. So I'd love to know which ones you prefer. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.